Kellen Moore is not a rah-rah guy. He's building a winning Saints culture by leading with authenticity and trust, not theatrics.
You are Locked On Saints, your daily New Orleans Saints podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, Who Dat Nation and Who Dat family? I am your host, your friend, Ross Jackson, New Orleans native, your New Orleans Saints expert and credentialed member of the media covering those New Orleans Saints as a Saints beat writer over at LouisianaSports.net. And on today's episode of Locked On Saints, this weekend's game up against the Atlanta Falcons is a major test for New Orleans and for Tyler Shough. We'll break down the litany of reasons why the Saints are also making history in the midst of starting their new era. We'll take a look at all of the things that the Saints achieved in just the last week against the Tennessee Titans. And we're going to kick everything off with a look at Kellen Moore and the way that he has inspired buy-in amongst his team, despite not being that famed rah-rah guy. We got all that and a little bit of lagniappe for you on today's episode. We appreciate you very much, whether it's your first time or your next time being here with us this time, making us your first listen, and being an everydayer here on the show, which is a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network. Thank you for helping us get here as we bring you your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Jump Scares, because for those of you watching, there's no beard. It's coming back. It's going to come back. Don't worry. I know it looks very strange right now, but it's all going to be fine. It's going to be fine. Don't worry about it. Let's talk Saints. For New Orleans, I think one of the biggest question marks that we asked going into the beginning of this season was, is Kellen's personality that of a team builder, rah-rah guy, leader, all of that? And what I'll say that we have learned in the midst of all of this is that Kellen Moore never needed to be the quintessential head coach that you see in all of the coming of age TV dramas about football. He never needed to be the big speech guy. He never needed to be the big rah-rah, yell, scream, throw stuff around kind of guy. He never needed to be that in order to be an efficient leader. And we have seen that play out. We spoke with both defensive tackle Jonah Williams as well as offensive tackle and rookie Kelvin Banks Jr. on Monday. The Saints did their kind of victory Monday, so he spoke to them on Zoom. And I asked both of them about the perceptions of Kellen Moore's leadership before and what the leadership has looked like, why it has worked, and how it is that he has generated buy-in. And two things stood out to me from the very beginning. The first of which is sort of just the level of like being genuine and being authentic that we knew Kellen Moore was already known for. It was a big thing that he pushed when he first arrived on the scene as a Saints head coach, that he was going to be authentic, that he was going to be genuine, that he wasn't going to try to sell something to these players, to this organization, to this coaching staff, and to this fan base and community that didn't actually exist. He wasn't going to try to pretend outside of his comfort zone. I remember speaking with one member of the coaching staff who mentioned that one of his favorite things about Kellen is that he doesn't pretend. Like, he doesn't do that thing to where it's like, here's a big picture of Muhammad Ali on the team meeting board, and I'm going to tell you why we're like Muhammad Ali, and blah, 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 blah. He's not doing those things. He's operating with a sense of truth, and he's operating with a sense of trust to his entire staff and to the roster. And so that authenticity comes not from being the guy that's going to stand up and give you a big inspirational speech, but a guy that's going to tell you that he's going to put you in the best position to succeed and then go and do that on Sundays. The guy that's going to have an answer for everything. That was a big part of what it is that Alvin Kamara highlighted about what he likes most about Kellen Moore earlier on in the season, was that anything that happened, if you went to Kellen Moore and you asked him, why is it that we're doing it this way, or why is it being done that way, that he always had a reason. Now, I'm sure that there's instances in which players have agreed, disagreed, coaches have agreed, disagreed in what the reason is, but there was always a why behind every what. And then there was always a how behind every what. And we're starting to see that translate now to the games on Sunday. So I think that those are some of the ways that he has led with the authenticity. Those are some of the ways that he has led with being genuine that have caused other players to buy in. They trust him. Trust is the other big part that I think is winning right now for Kellen Moore, because he has put a lot of trust in these players. He has put trust in going after Taysom Hill's 1,000 career marks and that they could do that while also still competing in that game against the New York Jets. He put trust in Tyler Shough and Chris Olave late in the game, just before the 2-minute warning against the Tennessee Titans, to go out there and let them try that big deep pass down the field on that first down, knowing that the clock was going to stop for the 2-minute warning anyway, but trusted that his receiver wouldn't put anything in a bad position and that his quarterback would put the ball where either the receiver was going to catch it or it was going to fall incomplete. They almost got a pass interference out of it, which would have been the ideal third option in that situation. But under no circumstances was there ever a seemingly large expectation that the ball could potentially end up in the hands of a Tennessee Titans defender. There was trust there. You also look at this team with an opportunity to go up 9 at the end of the game against the Tennessee Titans, but instead, after Audric Estimé's rushing touchdown, they take the field goal to go up 8, feeling that they could trust the defense to make the stop, and even if the defense gave up the touchdown, trust the defense to to stop the 2-point conversion. So there's a lot of trust that's building into this as well. So there's the on-field side, but there's also this off-field version of that trust that's being built as well. And Kelvin Banks Jr. highlighted it. He mentioned that if you go to Kellen Moore and you say, I feel like as a player, we could do this better, or we do this better when we do it this way, whatever the feedback might be, then any insight or feedback that's brought to Kellen Moore isn't met with, hey, this is my job. You don't get to have an opinion here. Instead, it's met with an appreciation for sharing the opinion and then an examination of how to potentially implement that insight. And that if he likes it, because again, he is at all times going to be the end-all be-all when it comes to decisions of what goes in on a Saturday, or what goes in on a Sunday, what goes in over a week that gets done on a Sunday. He has his meetings with Tyler Shough. Hey, what do you like? What do you not like against this defense, against this team, whatever it might be? And then finding ways to implement that. And for Kelvin Banks Jr., that was one of the top things that he highlighted that has allowed him and other players to buy in to what it is that Kellen Moore is doing. This has been a very successful approach by Kellen Moore. He hasn't been the TV drama head coach. He hasn't been the classic hard-nosed NFL head coach, but he's charismatic. He's built trust with his roster, his coaching staff, and he's building trust with his fan base and his community, and of course the organization. And he's doing it all by simply being himself and not trying to pretend to be something else. I'll never forget when, and I'm sorry to bring this up, but when Derek Carr first arrived and he did that press conference where he told everybody that he wasn't going to be his savior, what I appreciate, or that he was going to be no one's savior, sorry. But what I appreciated about Kellen Moore in his opening press conference is that he never told you what he wasn't going to be. He told you what he was going to be. And so far, he has checked all of those boxes. He said that he would be somebody that always led with truth, that always led with himself. I'm paraphrasing, but these are the insinuations that he made, and all of which have proven to be factual, all of which have been exactly the way that he has approached this season, and what has been a tumultuous season that started, let's not forget, 1-8 at one point, 2-10 at another, and here the New Orleans Saints now sit at 6-10 with an opportunity to go 7-10 and potentially finish second in the NFC South. There is a generation of buy-in happening around the New Orleans Saints, and he is doing it with his two principles: authenticity and trust, and without theatrics. Coming up next, the New Orleans Saints are putting up some theatrics in their new era on the football field as they are making history as everything changes. We got that coming up for you next as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Saints is brought to you by friends over at Gusto. Let's be real. Nobody gets into business ownership because they love calculating tax withholdings or looking at or dealing with things like managing payroll spreadsheets. Okay, maybe you do, but most people don't get into the businesses for that. And that is where Gusto comes in, helping you take all the stress out of payroll, benefits, and HR so that you can focus on managing and running your business and supporting your team. Gusto is an all-in-one remote-friendly payroll and HR platform, making managing simple. Managing your team is transparent, and most of all, it's all fast. as well. Right now, Gusto has automated tools like offer sheets, onboarding materials, and direct deposits to save you time each and every week. So try Gusto today by going to gusto.com/LockedOnNFL to get 3 months free when you run your first payroll. That's gusto.com/LockedOnNFL for 3 months free with your first payroll. Gusto.com/LockedOnNFL. All right, family, just like facial hair, sometimes things change very quickly and unexpectedly when it comes to the NFL, and that's what's happened for the New Orleans Saints. So far this season, things have changed very, very quickly. And in the midst of establishing their new era, the Saints are also making history along the way. Let's break it all down. And we appreciate you as always for being here with us, making us your first listen, being an everydayer. And of course, for your everydayers out there, if you want more, the Everydayer Club is available, $5 a month or $50 a year, ad-free episodes, as well as access to our Discord, which is slowly growing. So make sure you come through and check us out. You can find more information at the link in the description or at lockedonsaints.supercast.com. There's also a big all access one to get you film studies and things like that. You can check that out as well. All right, so the Saints are obviously changing a lot of things. A lot of things are changing around the world of the NFL. And I think a big part of what the Saints are doing is that they're changing things positively, right? Things are shifting in the right direction. The winds are correcting, the sails are taking them in the right path, all of that. And I think that this is a good thing to look at in terms of how the Saints are not just changing, but how they're achieving at the same time. And we're seeing the Saints make a lot of history in the process of heading down their new direction. Just this past weekend against the Tennessee Titans, several Saints players set career highs or put themselves in position to become the first Saint to do this, or one of the first players in the NFL to do that. All of that is what I want to highlight here today, or at least a lot of it, the quick ones to kind of go through here. So let's start off with quarterback Tyler Shough, obviously the biggest talk in town right now, DeBella DeBall, and deservedly so. I mean, he's been outstanding for the Saints. He's led them to 5 wins as a rookie quarterback, the most in franchise history, but that's not the only franchise mark that he's hit. He's also hit several career highs and franchise marks as well. For instance, today is Tuesday. 2 days ago, up against the Tennessee Titans, he set a career high with 333 passing yards. He also became one of 3 rookie quarterbacks in the Super Bowl era. So this is around the NFL. This isn't just franchise, right? Around the NFL, the one of 3 rookie quarterbacks in the Super Bowl era to have 2 consecutive 300-yard passing games with no interceptions. He joins just Joe Burrow and Dak Prescott in that category. And if the Saints got a Joe Burrow or a Dak Prescott out of Tyler Shough, I think they'd be very, 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 very happy about that. And they very well may get something better than one of those 2 or potentially even 2 of those 2 players. We never know when it comes to the NFL. He also finished with the 3rd highest passer rating, 142.7 for any Saints rookie in the history of the franchise dating back to 1967. So 142.7, which is also, of course, the highest rookie passer rating mark of the rookie, amongst the rookie quarterbacks this year as well, and amongst this class. So an incredible performance all told. And I think that actually hits top 10 for all quarterbacks across New Orleans Saints history as well. So a really, really big day for Tyler Shough, but it doesn't stop there. What about Chris Olave? We've talked a lot about this one. 1 touchdown catch away now from being the first 100 catch, 1,000 receiving yard, 10 touchdown catch receiver in franchise history in a single year. But even still, he became the 2nd New Orleans Saint, only behind Michael Thomas, who did it 3 times, with 100 catches in a year, and also had his first 100 catch season up against the Tennessee Titans as well. So he's kind of sealed all of that up just in that one game, and now has the potential with 1 touchdown catch against the Atlanta Falcons. And I do hope that he gets it. 1 touchdown catch against the Atlanta Falcons to be that first ever 100,010 receiver in franchise history. How about running back Audric Estimé, who was one of the sneaky stars of Sunday's game up against the Tennessee Titans, ran for a career high 94 rushing yards, gained 88 of those in the second half alone, 2 carries in the first half, 12 carries in the second half, and he made them count. in that second half. It's actually the most rushing yards by a New Orleans Saints running back, 94, since week 2 of the season when Alvin Kamara had 99. Unless Audric Estimé runs for over 100 rushing yards in next week's game against Atlanta, the Saints will finish the 2025. I went back in time. The 2025 season without a single 100-yard rushing player performance. That's okay when you're down to your 4th running back in a season, but also an opportunity there for Audric Estimé, who I hope the Saints get involved early on in the game instead of not getting him involved into the second half like they did up against Tennessee. But an awesome performance for Audric Estimé, who I'll remind you is only in his 2nd year in the NFL. By the way, I think people tend to forget that. They picked him up off of waivers because his time in Denver inexplicably came to an end after a successful, by the way, rookie season. And now he's a New Orleans Saint. And I think that this is working out for the Saints so far. He and Devon Vele, of course, both coming over from the Broncos, have been pretty good situations for them. I think Xavier Truss was with the Broncos as well. Tight end Juwan Johnson had a career high single game receiving yard day with 95 receiving yards. He already has career highs as well in receptions as well as yards on the season. So those are some of the big ones on the offensive side. But let's not forget, Kevin Austin Jr. caught his first touchdown reception of his career in this game as well. And so there's a lot more that has also happened around this team. But those are some of the big names on the offensive side. Let's jump over to the defensive side. Just 1 week after Alontae Taylor claimed the record for most sacks by a New Orleans Saints cornerback in a season, 3 defensive New Orleans Saints also helped themselves to some either career highs or franchise situations. Demario Davis, how about this? Career high single season combined tackles in a year with 137 in his 14th year in the NFL. How awesome is that? Demario Davis absolutely needs to be back on this team next year. Absolutely needs to be back on this team next year. He was dealing with a calf injury late in the game. We'll see if he plays up against the Atlanta Falcons. He doesn't miss many games due to injury, though, and he tends to heal up quickly. So we'll see what the 14th year injury recovery timeline looks like for him. But under no circumstances, even if he were to miss that last game up against the Atlanta Falcons, should anyone get it twisted about Demario Davis, other than he is still very much a part of the contributing factors to this team and particularly to this defense. Chase Young, 2nd career touchdown in his career. Also now has a new career high in single season sacks with 9, surpassed it with 8.5, and then landed his surpassed it with 8 and then 8 to 8.5 and then got his half, something like that. But he ended up he's got his career high in sacks now, surpassing his 7.5 previous career seasons, single season high. And then Cam Jordan, 7th season with 9 or more sacks in a year, sitting with 9.5 now, 29th such player to ever achieve that. And in special teams wise, even Charlie Smith getting in on the action again, career long 57-yard field goal. His initial career long was set with his debut field goal of 56 yards, which was the 3rd longest debut field goal for a kicker in the NFL. So as the New Orleans Saints are paving the way to their next era, they're ripping up the record books along the way. So shout out to all of those New Orleans Saints that have been able to enjoy and live and lavish in that. Coming up next, this upcoming game against the Atlanta Falcons is very important for a number of reasons for the New Orleans Saints, for their fans, and for rookie quarterback Tyler Shough. Let's break it all down as we wrap up today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Saints brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. You can download the Prize Picks app today, and you, within about a minute, once you get signed up, can already have your first lineup set. Look, it can sometimes be intimidating to get in on action because the sports action never slows down, but Prize Picks helps you stay in control. All that you have to do to take part in this exciting game is set a lineup, and building your lineups could not be easier because all you're doing is choosing more or less than player projections. That's it. You think that they're going to pass for more or less. You think they're going to run for more or less. You think they're going to score more or less. That's it. You do that, and then within 60 seconds, you have your first lineup set, and then you could be walking away with some big time cash because over at Prize Picks, it pays to be right. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL. You'll get $50 in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Let's get it, Who Dat Nation. This upcoming game that wraps up the NFL season for the New Orleans Saints against the Atlanta Falcons is a very, very important one from three different perspectives: for the fans, for the team, and for rookie quarterback Tyler Shough. And that's where we're going to start with all of this. We appreciate you very much, as always, for being here with us and for making us your first listen, being an everydayer, checking out the Everydayer Club. You can find more information about it with the link in the description. We appreciate you very, very much for continuing to support the show. And the New Orleans Saints have made it worth your while to continue to support them. And one of the biggest ways that they've done that is through rookie quarterback Tyler Shough, who has been outstanding with the overall management of the game, pre-snap, his ability to attack the field, down the field. He's made the New Orleans Saints fun again. He has been excellent in fourth quarters as well. And in fact, did you know? And if you didn't, I'm finna tell you. Rookie quarterback Tyler Shough leads the entire NFL in fourth quarter passing yards per game amongst starts at 94.6 passing yards. Like, he has been on fire as a fourth quarter player and fourth quarter quarterback, and has helped and made the biggest difference for the Saints, who had their first undefeated December in many, many years, and only the third undefeated December in the franchise's history. And this upcoming game might not be in December, it'll be in January, but it's going to be incredibly important for Tyler Shough, because the last time that Tyler Shough didn't win a football game as a starter, well, no, that's not true. One of the last times that Tyler Shough didn't win a football game as a starter was against the Atlanta Falcons. They also lost the game against the Miami Dolphins as well. But for teams amongst the division, the Falcons are the only team that he hasn't beat yet. He's beaten the Panthers twice. He beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And now he's got an opportunity to go out there. And just like he did, remember, he saw that second half up against Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And when they played against Tampa, one of the first things that I said about that game was, oh, here's an opportunity to see how Shough takes information and applies it to his next game. And to Tyler Shough's credit, it's something he's consistently done. He goes up to the podium every week and doesn't have to say the same thing every week, because he'll say, yeah, I wasn't very good at this week. And then the next week, he's fine at it or great at it in some cases. And so the last time that he's played a division opponent and lost was when he took on the Atlanta Falcons. And now he gets to close out his season against the Atlanta Falcons. Now he's going to be without several pieces, just like we have seen this team manage over the course of the past few weeks. He's going to be going up against an Atlanta Falcons team and all that. That's, surged and cooled off and flashed and dulled and all of that all throughout the season. The roller coaster of the Atlanta Falcons season has been, not the same as the Saints, because the Saints were like down with some spikes, and then now they've been up. The Falcons have been a little bit more kind of all over the place. But real opportunity here for Tyler Shough to kind of show, hey, I have knowledge from the first time that I faced this team. I know things are going to be different, but I'm going to apply some of the things that I learned during that, and I'm going to be a better quarterback the second time that I face him, the first time that I face him. He did that against Tampa. I'm very curious to see if he can do that against Atlanta. The other reason why this is really important for Tyler is because it's kind of the last thing that he needs to do, right? Fans have already kind of, rallied around him, even fans that didn't believe in him at first. Analysts, players, well, I don't want to say players, but analysts that didn't necessarily buy into him, players that maybe didn't know, now know, and all these other things. Like, there's no more question marks around Tyler Shough as the future quarterback for this team. But boy, beating the Atlanta Falcons sure does go a long way in the city. And so it could be a great way to set up for like a fantastic offseason of hope and excitement and all that. I think that it's important for the team because of the fact that, A, you want to beat the Falcons for your fan base, right? You want to do that as a team. But then also, I think it's important for the team because, like, if the Saints beat the Falcons, they actually finish the season 4-2 in the division. And I've talked about this before. If next season this team goes 4-2 in the division and wins 4 other games, they could win this division. The NFC South is horrible. And it's evidenced by the fact that the division could be won again by either an 8-win team or a 9-win team this very season. Like, there's a world in which the Saints finish only 2 games out of first place. That's a real thing that can happen at the end of all of this. And so, and really, no, because they're 8-8. So yeah. So in any case, like they could finish like 2 games out from the division lead. And so where the Saints are right now in their lifespan, like we always talk about on this show, like the lifespan of NFL teams and how there's upswings and downswings. They're on the upswing. And so building that upswing further by beating the Falcons, I think obviously would have a major set of very positive consequences or results going into the offseason. Finally, I think that it's really important for the fan base. This game is extremely important for the fan base. I think you're going to see a lot of Saints fans in Atlanta. You're going to see a lot of Saints fans in Mercedes-Benz Stadium at kickoff. And you're going to see a lot of Saints fans. You're going to, and my prediction is that you're going to see almost more Saints fans or as many Saints fans in the seats at the end of the game than there will be Falcons fans at the end of the game in those seats. And I think that this is important for the fan base, this win, because of what we mentioned before, that this propels you with so much momentum going into the offseason that there's going to be very few things that fans aren't going to be pleased with going into 2026. Now, you have free agency, the draft, you can't, fumble the bag there, but this is a really good send-off and kind of punctuation or exclamation point, rather, at the end of what has been a very exciting 2025 season, and particularly towards the end. So very important for Tyler Shough, very important for the team, very important for the fan base, this game, and more important, win against the Atlanta Falcons. All right, y'all, time for a little bit of lanyap for the real ones that made it here through the episode. If you're here, let me know, by the way. Sound off so that I know and I can show you some love. I wanted to bring up something that came up in our Discord conversations the other day. We have we have a Locked On Saints Discord kind of channel or sub-channel. Forgive me, I'm not super familiar with how Discord works. And then we also have like an NFC South trash talk, which is really just like me and a few other Saints fans right now. And so would love to kind of get that popping off while other, fan bases start to join in. But in that, a user, Michael, mentioned, where would Shough go in this year's draft? And then the suggestion was second overall, ? And I think second overall is because like Ruben Bain, Arvell Reese, Sadiq, the offensive lineman, these guys are all kind of in conversation for the number 1 overall selection. So he could be the second overall selection if he were in this year's draft, but then still be the first quarterback off the board. But there's also the world in which, teams get quarterback crazy and they trade up and they go and draft guys that aren't number 1 overall selection guys, but they take them at number 1 overall. And all those other things. And it got me wondering, like, when you look at this quarterback class of 2026, because this was potentially going to be a big conversation here in New Orleans. Fernando Mendoza, Dante Moore out of Oregon, Mendoza, of course, out of Indiana, and then a few, Ty Simpson, out of Alabama. Like, those kind of became the top passers and really surpassed guys like Cade Klubnik and Garrett Nussmeier and all that, kind of left those guys behind in the conversation. Lenore Sellers, who ended up going back to college anyway, I kind of left those guys behind in the conversation for who the top quarterback would be in this year's class. It got me wondering, like, okay, if Tyler Shough was, 25 going into his rookie year and just had whatever would be the impressive equivalent to his season here in New Orleans, but as a full-time starter in college at Louisville, where would he go? And I think it's very possible he could be the first quarterback off the board. And so we talked a lot about how the Saints had, or not the Saints, but Tyler Shough had the opportunity to potentially play the Saints out of drafting a quarterback contender in the first round. And he's effectively done that. He's not only played them out of the position, but has convincingly said, hey, you don't need to worry about that. I got you, build around me. And so it was just a really interesting thing. And I'm curious your thoughts. And I'm gonna pull some of our Locked On experts that cover the teams that are going to be at the top of the draft and looking for a quarterback. Raiders with Q, John, who you met earlier this season with Locked On Jets, and a few other teams to kind of see like where, like if Tyler Shough was 20, 25, 26 going into the draft and had an equally impressive full season at Louisville to what he's done here in New Orleans in 8 starts, 9 starts, would you take him for your team number 1 overall? And I'll be very curious, but I'm curious to hear it from you. What do you think? What do you think those teams should do? What do you think that they would do in that circumstance? And would you do it? Because I think after what we've seen from Tyler Shough, I certainly would with this quarterback class, which I think is better than people think that it is. But even still with that, like the way that Tyler Shough has played this year, yeah, I would take that as a starting point going into 2026. All right, fam, make sure you come back for tomorrow's episode. It's midweek Wednesday film watch. We'll dive into some of my all 22 notes from the Saints win over the Tennessee Titans. We appreciate you very much. As always, make this a part of your day, part of your routine for saying yes to me and the show. If you see me, please say hi. And if you need anything else around your New Orleans Saints in between these episodes, make sure you follow me on your favorite social media at Ross Jackson, NOLA. Hit me up. Let me know how the family's doing, how you living. Let me know how you momming them. And trust Who Dat Nation, I'll holla at you.